Derided as obnoxious and weird, the Poughkeepsie New York interchange connecting the US 9 and US 44 certainly looks like it has its issues. The U-turn sections that need to be negotiated to access turns eliminate the need to cross any traffic. However, it does, on the downside, introduce issues related to traffic weaving. It's just like a full cloverleaf design. This unusual design contributes to driver confusion, and the results are that the interchange experiences crash rates well above similar road facilities in the area. However, it got me thinking, this is a very compact design, let's face it. You probably would take up a very similar amount of space making a basic diamond interchange in your own city, and I reckon it might actually work pretty well in the game. Safety concerns, obviously not a concern of ours in Cities Skylines 2. This is another tutorial build, and a vanilla one I should add, so you don't need any mods to build this interchange. I did, however, at the end use a handful of mods to decorate it and make it look nice once we're finished. So obviously I'm going to show you how to build it, and then at the end I'm going to give you a few suggestions as to where and when you might want to use it. Thank you again to our sponsor Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Gamers on PC, PlayStation, Xbox and Switch can all save money on their games through the site. There's great options on gift cards. A quick example is the £50 PlayStation gift card. They're doing it for £42.95. There's similar savings on the Xbox gift vouchers too, £50 gift card. It's available for even less at £37.99. So it's not a bad shout if you're stuck for ideas on what to get somebody for Christmas. Games of all genres are available on the site. Action, adventure, FPS, RPG, simulation, they have them all. Be sure to click on the link below and see what you can save. Before we start on the build, just one quick note. I didn't notice that the map came with left-hand traffic enabled, so I am going to build this interchange and we're going to be building it for right-hand traffic, but once the time comes where I need to connect it to the highways, I am going to change it to left-hand traffic. So keep that in mind. The construction is exactly the same regardless of the traffic direction. It makes no odds, but if you're wondering why I'm swapping it there, that is basically the reason. As usual with these tutorials, I am going to be using RunFX Interchange Test Map. I'm just going to strip out the existing highway and I'm going to be bringing in some large roads instead. Now, this being a tutorial, I want to make it as easy for you guys to follow as possible. I want to make it consistent and I want to make it repeatable. So we're going to be using markers and this will make it much easier for us. We'll have nice consistent symmetry and slopes and angles, etc. will be the same. And here's a quick example of how a basic cross section would get on. Not too good really. So the markers on the very outside, the big one to the right hand side, we've done 300 meters and we've taken it out on a 90-degree angle on the road on the right. And we just want to create little nubbins and that is going to give us guidelines for later on in the build. The inner markers here that we're drawing out, I'm taking that 72 meters from the highway that's running north to south. And this is going to give us a starting point for our highway, which is going to run underneath this bridge section that we're doing. Now the bridge I've just taken at an 8-meter height, and I've used the highway that's running left to right, and we're going to use the guidelines and we'll get a nice straight road. I'm just making the bridge the minimum distance either side of the markers. Then we've got consistent down ramps on both sides. We're going to use 200-meter ramp. We bring it down to zero height or ground level, and that will give us identical angles on both sides of the bridge. At this point we can now remove the markers that we have at the north side of the bridge. And at this point what we can do is we can grab the highway that we want to have running underneath here. So I know there's going to be a good few lanes down here. I'm going to choose to use a 3-lane highway. Now bear in mind you can use whatever configuration you want, but I know that there's going to be some additional traffic sort of entering down here, so I would like an extra lane. So 3-lane it is, and what we're going to do is we're going to put consistent angles on all of these roads. So they're going to have the same heights and they're going to have the same angles, and we're going to create 4 of them. So we don't have any guidelines to keep us right, so we just need to sort of manually put in the angles. So what we're going to do here is make sure that it goes under the bridging section itself. We're going to drag it out for 200 meters. And then we're going to take it off at an angle of 145. Now you see here that I had a problem with the bridging section, so I deleted that and we can just rebuild this back in. And pay attention to the snapping options as well. we do want to be super consistent with these. So 200 meters, we want to find the angle at 145 degrees, and then we want to bring it out 70 meters. So again, I'll show you again on the other side. I'll maybe zoom in and give you a closer look at these. So 200 meters, angle of 145, and then we want to take it out another 70 meters. Perfect. And same again. Let's do a quick zoom in. There we go. As I said, if you're a meter or two out, it's not the end of the world, it will be fine. And obviously we had that little problem with the bridge, we just rebuild the bridge back in. So I think we're looking good to go. I'm just going to sort out the direction of traffic. Remember, I'm building this for right-hand traffic. So we're on to the next section, which is basically going to be sorting out the ramps. And again, we have 4 of these, and we're going to try and be super consistent in terms of angles, and I'll show you how I went about doing that. The first thing I did was create a little marker here. First, I took a road out of the existing highway, and I took it out at a 90-degree angle. The reason for taking it out at 90 degrees is that we're going to be able to find a halfway point. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I dragged it right across and got a measurement for the entire width, and then I just created the road to the halfway point. From there, I'm going to draw out 80 meters and create a little nubbin, and again, from the halfway point and the middle point under the bridge, again, we're going to do exactly the same down the bottom, 80 meters, and then a little horizontal road there. And that horizontal road we are going to use as a little marker for our ramps. So what I'm trying to do with these ramps is to take them off the bridge just as soon as they pass over the highway underneath. So I'm going to be using an angle of 14 degrees, and I'm going to be pulling it out 128 meters. Don't worry if you didn't get it first time, I'm going to show you a few times here. So 14 degree angle, 128 meters. When we're taking the curve back to the highway on the left, you're going to see the guideline, perfect, and then we're just going to drag it along that highway. So let's see that again then. So it's 14 degrees, 128 meters, curve it, hit the guideline, and then drag along 100 meters. Now you're going to see me try this a couple of times, and this is due to the nodes that we have on the bridge, and I think it's important sometimes to keep this kind of stuff in so you can see what's going on, and these are the issues that you might come across yourself. You can see that the 2 bridges have basically adjoined here, and we definitely don't want that, so that had to go there as well. And really what I needed to do was to just try and find an alternative starting point. We've tried that twice and it didn't quite work. So 3rd time around with new nodes and a new bit of bridge, we're using the exact same measurements, and you'll see here we've got it in just perfectly fine, and that's exactly what we're after here. So let's have a closer look. It looks pretty cool, very unusual, isn't it, you know? So as I said, I'm going to show you this a few times. I think it's important because these are the ones that can be a little bit trickier than anything else. Now, if you're building your own, feel free to use whatever measurements you want. You could potentially go a bit narrower, you could go a bit wider, entirely up to you. But I know that these measurements work, and yeah, the only issue you maybe have is the nodes on the bridge that can be pretty easily remedied, to be honest. If you are still struggling for whatever reason, you can make the measurements a little bit shorter. So instead of pulling out 128 there, you can maybe pull out to a 110. You just have a bigger gap between the two curved highway bridges. There we have it. We got all 4 ramps there sorted, and that gives us a pretty decent starting point. So you can see that some of the bridges are keywalled and some of them aren't, and that's just down to us having to do the different nodes, and I'm absolutely fine with that. It looks cool. To complete the U-turn sections, it's just simple curves on the end. So you're just going to pull it out and pull it out straight. I'm using 180 degrees here, and then as soon as we hit the guideline, 180, slot it into the inside lane, and that's the U-turns complete. Perfect. Now the next thing I wanted to do was to try and create some consistent connections to the highway. It really doesn't matter exactly what measurements you use, I just wanted to be consistent on each side, and that's why I built that frame. So we have exactly the same distances on both sides that we need to complete. So all I did here was just use consistent angles. Again, I used 170 degrees. When you're pulling it out from the other side, it might come up as 10 degrees. So you're looking for 10 degrees or 170. And again, I'm just going to use that simple curve, and we're going to complete those 4 sections. There we go. That's looking good. Nice and symmetrical. Perfect. So it was at this point that I realised it was left-hand traffic, And the alternative would have been to redo all of the spawners and make them all right-hand traffic to go with the interchange. Just not worth it. It was easier for me just to swap things around on the interchange itself. 2-minute job, easy done. We'll get it all sorted right now, and then we can have a quick look and get some traffic flowing and see what it looks like. So I just need to quickly connect the crossroad to the other main sections, and then we'll get rid of the last and final frame that we used for the ramps. Okay, I think we are good to go. Oh, traffic lights as well, don't forget about them. And then we'll just let this run for a second. Okay, so I reckon all of that is working as intended, and it's pretty satisfying to watch actually. Those ramps are pretty nice. So I'm going to get it decorated and then I'll let it run on a little bit and we'll get a better idea of how it runs once the interchange is up and running and we get a bit more traffic on it. Now rather than an urban setting, I would like to create a little bit of a kind of swamp type area here. So we're just going to use the water surfaces, and I'm going to hide those sharp edges on the water with some sunken palm trees. They work really well actually, and they give a nice bit of waterside vegetation. We can use them on the water, and again it kind of breaks up the thickness of the water surface. Now we will be using some of the clouds to kind of break that up as well, but we definitely want something on the ground level. Here I'm going to be using some oaks. We use oaks everywhere in Cities Skylines 2, and again I'm sinking them down, and I've used this before in the Cape Loman series. It gives what I think is probably the most realistic overgrown sort of bush look, so we will use plenty of that, and again that will be like an outside border if you like to the sunken palms that we've used on the water. I'm going to be using a preset tool brush that I've made already, and I am just going to give a forest backdrop to the main interchange itself. And again, we don't need to go too much in the way of detail here, we just spam it out and create a little bit of density, more so in the middle. In terms of surfaces, I'm only going to use the riverbed surface, and yeah, I just skipped ahead. You can kind of get an idea. It just breaks up that standard grass surface. Nice. To add a little bit more contrast and a little bit more detail, I'm going to be using some decals. Again, just some of the dirt decals, and we'll give some concentrated areas of darker surface. To add a bit of lightness to the scene, I'm going to add some random boulders about the place. Not going to go too overboard here. Again, I just want to sort of break it up and give some light elements to contrast against the dark. And continuing on that theme, I'm going to use some of the rubble as well, and again it kind of gives the impression that it's sort of exposed rock at points, which is quite nice. And where we've got some of that exposed rock, I think a little bit more of the sunken palms will be quite welcome. That looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Oh. So we've given this urban interchange a real rural setting instead, and I think it's a nice addition to the toolkit. I hope you guys found it useful. I think in terms of use cases for this one, I'd be thinking of medium-high traffic usage. So I'd be thinking of when I need more than a grade separated diamond interchange, for example, or maybe a park low, but perhaps where we don't necessarily need a full massive free-flowing highway interchange. So personally I think it's a great compact alternative to a cloverleaf. The weaving issues will affect both of these designs, in a similar matter, but you're going to be able to save a bit of space. Game save for this one will be available for Patreon and YouTube members. You might be able to copy paste it into your own city using the Control-C mod. If you guys have got ideas where you would use it, let me know in the comments below. I want to hear them. And thanks again to Instant Gaming for the sponsorship. Don't forget to check out the link below, it does help the channel. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.